Today I'm going to show you how to make two primitive jigs for cutting perfect rawhide lacing and making 2 and 3 strand rawhide cordage or rope. So I've got my little hardwood dowel here. It's about 6 inches long, and I've got my my longitudinal cut in there. And now we need to cut a perpendicular cut to that. And we're gonna go just a little bit beyond this cut that we made. And how far beyond that gap is gonna determine how wide your lacing is. So that's, oh, I don't know, maybe 1/4 inch. So the most important thing about this is that the base of this perpendicular cut be parallel with however your blade sits in there. Because if your blade sits in there at an angle, it's either gonna cut out of the lace or it's gonna try to cut into the main part of the rawhide too much and shove too much of the lace in between the blade and the little jig you've got here. And so having those two things parallel is pretty important. That's what's going to allow you to pull that nice long strip out of there very easily. So I've got just a little piece of rawhide here, and I'm going to find the approximate center, and I'm going to cut a hole out of it and then start our lacing there. So when you first, so you can see I've got just the tip of the knife sticking through there. Kind of see how it's laid out underneath there. When you first get this started, you need to pull both the tail and the strip of rawhide. But once it gets going, now you could use this just as is, but I'm going to make a 2-ply cordage out of this, so we need to soak this, stretch it, and then twist it. So we're just going to make a little rope twisting jig, a couple of these serviceberry sticks. So we're gonna twist this lace pretty doggone tight. Then we're gonna find the midpoint, double it over, and reverse twist it. It's gonna take a little bit. So I can feel there's a lot of spring to this. That means it wants to twist back on itself. So now we'll just find the midpoint, double it over. I'm gonna put this loop on that peg down there, and then we'll reverse twist it back together. So we'll go ahead and just stick that in the ground so it doesn't go anywhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 4.5 steps. 2, 3, 4. It's about the midpoint. You got to keep this thing kind of tight so it doesn't twist back on itself. So now we'll just reverse twist it back together. We'll have a bowstring once it dries. So the cordage is all twisted up, but I want to stretch it so it's really tight. So I'm going to put it just across here, across the front of the shelter here. Put a bit of a stretch on it. So when that dries, that ought to make a pretty good bowstring for a lightweight bow. Rawhide in general is not a great bowstring. Sinew is much, much better, but it will work if that's what you got. And that's what we got. The process for making 3-ply cordage is pretty much the same with some slight differences. For that, we're gonna need 3 sticks. I've got the first one put down here just like we did on the other one. And I'm not quite sure where to put these yet because we have to figure out, we have to break this into thirds. We'll put 1 stick down at 1/3, 1 stick down at 2/3, and then we're going to triple this thing over. Now, I have got a bunch of rawhide lacing here that I've cut. So I'm gonna put one end over this, and I've cut a little notch in my stick just to help hold it on there. Now I'm gonna go through this bundle and just pre-stretch everything. For these really long pieces of cordage, pre-stretching is gonna do 2 things. Number one is you're gonna go through there, you're gonna stretch all of it, and that's gonna help make sure that there's no weak spots. Because if this is gonna break, I'd rather it break during that stretching process than once I'm halfway done making a rope. Number 2 is if there's any remnants of membrane that is on the flesh side, it's gonna help break those loose because that membrane only adds bulk to the string and doesn't add any strength. The other thing to keep in mind is when you're working with this much wet rawhide lacing is it does tend to tangle up. And so as you're working your way through this, kind of pre-stretching this bundle, just kind of lay it in a nice stack so that it doesn't get all bound up. And that's gonna help when I go to stretch this out, it's gonna help stretch it out without getting everything tangled up. All right, so we've got all our cordage pre-stretched and laid out, and we're just gonna stretch it out. All right, so I'm stretched out here probably 50 yards, and that's just out of one piece. And that's the beauty of that lace cutter is you can cut a piece of rawhide, you know, something like this, and you can just strip lacing, you know, as long as you want to. And so stretch or twisting a cord that's 50 yards long with one of these little primitive twirly things is gonna take a very, very long time. I'm gonna be here for quite some time. So I'm gonna bring you guys back once I get this thing twisted up and we're ready to move on with the next step, which is gonna be tripling this over. So if you're lucky enough to have somebody out here with you and you make another one of these twirlers, you can cut the time in half by having one at the other end and just twisting in opposite directions. All right. So that took about 3,000 years. We're just gonna stick this in the ground to hold it just like we did last time. Then I'm gonna step this off and divide it into thirds. All right, so we're roughly 45 yards. So we'll break it into thirds. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15. All right, so I'm gonna go out of the frame for a minute because I gotta walk all the way around this one and keeping this tight. And then I'm gonna loop it onto that second one. And we'll go get this one and bring it to the original stake. It's off just a little bit on my distance estimations. So I'm gonna have to move this. So I'm just gonna go along this one more time, just make sure that everything looks good. If there's any areas that are just kind of fat, you can stretch those out a little bit more. Maybe they've got a little bit of membrane that's stuck to them. You can peel that stuff off. But we want things to be as uniform as possible. Okay, so everything's looking good. Just get our cordage off of this stick here. And then put it on our twister again. So when we twisted this, originally I twisted it counterclockwise. So to reverse twist all these strands together, I'm gonna go clockwise. All right, I think that's enough twisting. So our cordage is all twisted up and it looks really good. It's nice and uniform. It's still wet right now. And so just like with the other stuff, I'm just gonna tie it up and stretch it good and tight and just let it dry like that. It's wet right now, it's been raining, so it might be a day or two, but once this is dry, I'll bring you guys back and we'll take a look at it and see what it looks like. Finally got a little sun to dry out our cordage and it looks like it's turned out really nice. So we've got probably 35 yards of this 3-ply cordage that we made, and the diameter is about maybe 1/8 of an inch or a little bit less. But you could use this, these same techniques for making, a lariat or, pretty much any size diameter rope that you're going to want to make with rawhide. And you could also, like the lace cutter and the rope twister, you could also use that for making cordage with cedar bark. And I might show that later in the spring when the bark starts to slip a little bit. So I think that's going to tie it up for this video. We'll see you guys on the next one.